All right, Rowdy, we're back, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Wonderful, man. We got the defending national champions in the lab today. This is a really interesting football team, so I'm happy that we get to have this discussion with the football season closing in on us.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. I'm really looking forward to discussing the Alabama Crimson Tide after, they have a lot of departures. We're not really going to touch on them as much, but we're, really going to talk about, the what this team is going to be like going forward, of course.
Yeah, it's a complete new look Tide, especially on the offense. The big three of Mac Jones, Najee Harris, Devontae Smith. Those guys are gone. You insert Bryce Young, Brian Robinson, and John Mechie. I want to start with Bryce Young. He was the top rated recruit, number 2 recruit actually in the class of 2020 out of modern day. I think this kid, he's an elite athlete. He has above average arm strength. I'm seeing an amplified effect of Jalen Hurts in 2016 with his first year as a starter. How are you feeling, Hurts? You think he's going to explode? Do you think he's going to be a boom? Or do you think he's just going to be a bust?
Well, actually, I have a projection for his first season stats. I would imagine 3,000 yards, around 30 touchdowns, and I think he'll also kind of have, you say, the above average arm strength. I think his arm is going to get him in a little bit of trouble at times, so I'll throw 10 interceptions on there. I don't think it'll get much higher than 10 though, and then add 500 yards on the ground along with 5 touchdowns.
Young has impressive tangibles. Like you said, his arm might get him in trouble a little bit. You might see that with some freshmen here and there.
Yeah,
That's not really a big concern because he can get through his reads. He possesses it. He possesses great presence in the pocket. He can improvise, and
hmm
improvising, as you know, that can get you in trouble. So that just comes with experience. So I can agree with the 10 interceptions or 10 turnovers in total. But for the most part, I think Young really fits nicely into this quick strike offense. That's why it provides the amplified effect of Hurts. Hurts did a lot of magic, when he was a freshman. Not really
yeah.
with his arm, but his stats are really nice. He was an above average game manager, you can say. I think Young's going to do that, but I think a little bit more from the passing game is what we're going to see from Young.
I think he'll do what Jalen did, except on a higher level.
Yeah, yeah. You know, Steve Sarkisian, another guy, I guess you could say the big four, really. Steve, he's gone. He's off to Texas. Insert Bill O'Brien. You see Bill being inserted, changing anything into this offense? Do you think it's really just going to be the same?
I would imagine it's going to be the same, and that's pretty much the main reason why I think Bryce Young might, not be lackluster, but that's why I have, the 10 turnovers is because I think it will take him a while to adjust to the offense because he's going to be a guy that, wants to make the big play, and it's just going to get him in trouble at times, and I think that also will go into the offense staying the same.
Yeah, I think Bill O'Brien's perfect replacement. I think he's going to really thrive in this role, as other guys have over the years in Saban's offensive coordinator position. So, I guess he has high expectations, but I don't expect him to, falter much. And if he does early, then, it's just a learning process. I don't think, I think by the end of the year, these guys are really going to be clicking on all cylinders.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really looking forward to see what the comparison to Jalen Hurts was really good, and I'd like to see how Bill O'Brien does back in a college system for the first time, and I don't even know how many years, honestly.
So you have the QB position figured out with a running back. This is a loaded backfield. I'm really happy Brian Robinson returned to school. He's a big body. He's been leaned on for short yardage pickups over the past couple years. 6'1", 228, runs behind the shoulder pads, embraces and fights through the contact. He's also a shifty runner in the open field. But he's not the only one. You have Jason McClellan as well. I think that this could potentially be the top duo, not in the SEC, but in the entire country, really.
Really, that's I'm a little hesitant on, the Alabama run game. I'd like to see a little bit more out of Brian Robinson, and I think this will be the year that he can be the bell cow. But that's kind of my biggest question: is will Alabama go with a rotational, or will they trust Brian Robinson enough to give him the full starting role and rotate guys in behind him? But obviously Jason McClellan's a guy that's going to be the number 2 guy behind Robinson. Trey Sanders is a guy that we've talked about in a past podcasts. He's just got to get past the injuries, man.
And the
It's real
terrible luck, for
unfortunate.
sure.
It's real unfortunate.
Yeah, the number 1 running back in the class of 2019. He projected he was going. I believe he said he was going to win the Heisman his freshman year. Well, he didn't even get a chance to do that. Tore his ACL before it started.
hmm
Then a week after, he had a career high 80 yards versus Mississippi State last year. He got in a car wreck, had a hip injury that ended his 2020. Just praying the bad luck goes away for him so he can finally get on the field. But when he is healthy, these guys really have nice depth at running back position.
Yeah.
The varying opinions on Robinson, though, I think he's gonna be. I think Alabama running backs, they always seem to fill their role nicely. I'm not really
hmm
concerned about this running game. like I said, he's some very impressive traits. I think he's really going to see his full potential start to explode this season.
Yeah, and they're running behind, arguably once again one of the best offensive lines in college football. So you bring a very good, solid point right there about the offense probably just being the same and with the running backs.
Before we jump to the offensive line, I want to stay focused on the weapons they have. Devontae
Mm-hmm.
Smith, as we mentioned, is gone. John Mechie's back. We expect him to take over that number one receiver role with no problems whatsoever. He was a big hitter for them last year, almost 17 yards per catch, really. But after that, Jalen Waddle is also gone. It's kind of inexperienced. These guys are really going to have to build some chemistry together. But I don't really have a lot of concerns. They have a lot of talent, and that includes Jahlil Billingsley at tight end, who I think is going to make an impact at receiver as well.
Yeah, that's the one thing that a young quarterback like Bryce Young has going for him is the fact that this Alabama receiving core, including the tight ends, it doesn't really have to rebuild. They had a great third piece in John Mechie last year, and he's now going to be the number one guy. And plus, they added Jameson Williams through the transfer portal from Ohio State, so they've got weapons. Down to Slade Bolden and Jahlil Billingsley. I think he's a guy that's really going to explode. Cameron Latou. Alabama, they just have playmakers all over the field when it comes to the receiving the ball.
Williams from Ohio State, I think that's an underrated pickup in the portal. I think it's a big deal for Alabama to get that veteran pass catcher in there. Back to Billingsley, 6'4", 230, but he moves like a wide receiver you can put in space. Has the same impact in the trenches and the red zone as you'd expect from a tight end. His elite athleticism, I guess you could say, is his best trait for being that size. I'm really excited to see what he can do this fall.
Yeah, and then Agaye Hall or Ajayi Hall, I can't ever pronounce his name. He made a lot of good plays in the Alabama spring game, and I bet he's a name that to know as a freshman receiver that's going to get on the field quite often.
Yeah, Hall, he made a lot of highlight reel catches in that game, so he really burst onto the scene. A lot of people really learned that name quickly, and I think he's going to find his way into the rotation, as is Ja'Cory Brooks, a highly touted recruit coming out of, I believe, the Florida area. So
yes.
He's going to be another guy inserted into the role. I think these guys have depth at running back and receiver, so I'm not really concerned about the youth or inexperience. These guys will figure out as they always do.
Right.
Back to the big guys blocking up front. This is the main thing I really wanted to talk about when it comes to Alabama. They replaced 4 starters, 3 or 4 depending on who you ask, because Chris Owens, he played the last 2 games at center, so he's a senior presence. So it technically replaced 3 starters. Evan Neal's going to make the shift to left tackle. These guys got J.C. Latham and Tommy Brockmeyer. The top 2 linemen in the class of 2021 are coming to town. How are you seeing this offensive line? Do you think it's going to be shaky early on? Do you think they're just going to shine?
Well, I think they got 2 guys that can go in the 22 draft really early, and Emil Ikior and Evan Neal. So that's the left side is solidified. Yeah. Chris Owens, he's gotten playing time throughout the offensive line. He adds depth, and of course, because he played last year, he's got the leadership. And J.C. Latham and Tommy Brockmeyer are just absolute stellar additions. I thought 2 of the best absolute prospects in last year's class. I would honestly like to see Tommy Brockmeyer get the nod at the beginning. But I think you can't go wrong with him or J.C. Latham. And then Javian Cohen, of course, is going to be another great fit for the Alabama line.
Yeah, I have Latham and my projected starting lineup holding down that right tackle position, and Brockmeyer's not in the lineup. The only reason why is because, they both have similar skill sets, but I think Latham's a little bit more advanced. I think he thrives as a run blocker and can easily get to the second level. He's also got very impressive movement and quickness and pass protection. You saw that in camps in 2020 before COVID canceled the rest of, high school workouts and stuff. But, Brockmeyer, you can't go wrong with him either. Nice bulky frame, his athletic ability and strength. He excels as a run blocker as well. But I think Latham has the edge as a pass blocker, and I think that's what's going to give him the right tackle spot, or at least early in the season.
Yeah, either one. I mean, they're going to play early on. Even if Latham he gets the nod, I think Brockmeyer is going to be a guy that comes right in, and he's just going to be a rotational player. I believe Evan Neal started at right tackle. Do you remember?
Yeah, he's going to shift the left tackle this fall.
Yeah.
Alex Leatherwood departs, so I believe Neal's going to take over that position.
And I honestly believe we'll see the same thing with J.C. Latham next year if Evan Neal decides to go to the draft, because I think that's a really good in a tackle's development, starting them out at right tackle so they're not thrown into the flames at left. Obviously, we saw Alabama's first game on the schedule, Zion Nelson from Miami a few years ago. That happened. But, it's a good strategy to get the freshman guys in at the right tackle, develop them eventually for that starting left tackle role.
Yeah, I don't think it's an if Neal declares for the draft, it's just win, because he will be a perennial top 5 to 10 pick, depending on team needs, of course. He's the best tackle in the country. Now that we have this offense all sorted out, we move to the defense. They really haven't been – the rush defense hasn't been as dominant over the years. In 2019, 3.8 yards per carry allowed, 3.3 last year. Still nowhere near the 2015 to 17 units where they wouldn't even allow 2.5 on the route. So they're not as dominant or productive in the trenches, but I still really like these guys, especially on the interior.
Yeah, I think they've got a lot of guys that, especially, the front seven. I think this is one of the most stacked linebacker cores that Bama's had in the last few years. Christopher Allen, Will Anderson, Christian Harris, and then you add Henry To'oto from Tennessee. They're just stacked, man, and I'm really looking forward to see how these guys shape up, because like you said, this team, they just haven't really had the same rush defense like they once did in the 2015-16 teams.
Yeah, probably the best linebacking core in the nation. You added To'oto from Tennessee that just solidified it. They have an elite pass rush, athleticism at linebacker. Jalen Moody was a guy expected to take over that middle linebacker role, but To'oto comes over, so you might not get a lot of playing time, bearing on injury or just earning the position outright. He had 7 of his 17 tackles on the year against Arkansas for forced fumble where Moses was out. So he's a good ball player. I hope he can get on the field. Just focusing on the defensive line, though, Fedarian Mathis, a guy like Brian Robinson, I'm very excited came back. He's a complete run stuffer. He just clogs the apps. That's what he does. But I think we're still going to see a strong rotation. I don't think we're going to see somebody put up, 15 tackles for loss in this defensive line, but I think the rotation's strong. DJ Dale, O'Brien Ray, and then Tim Smith, 8th ranked defensive tackle in the class of 2020. He has impressive balance as a run stopper and pass rusher. I think that's a name to look out for on this front seven.
Yeah, I'm with you right there. DJ Dale and LeBron Ray are guys that are going to fill right in with Fedarian Mathis. I don't see them going with a stout guy, like they once did with Quinnen Williams. They'll just go with a rotation heavy, because they have that many guys that can get on the field, and they're all starting caliber. So they want to get all these guys on the field and get a variety.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, I'd like to touch on Will Anderson, Christopher Allen, and Christian Harris. Really, these guys all are very young, and they've all had great production. I think these guys are going to continue to take the next step, and that's why I think this pass rush is also probably the best in the nation. I really think this defense is going to be kind of a vintage Alabama season for this defense. We haven't even I'm saying that before we've even got to the secondary yet.
Yeah, I'm with you on this. I think we're going to have kind of the same feeling about this Alabama defense. I got a really good feeling about it, and then we're going to go to the secondary, and it's just going to get even better from there.
Yeah, speaking about this secondary, they're ranked 70th in pass yards per game allowed somehow, but they only allowed 300-plus yards only 3 times. 2 of them were early in October, and then in the SEC title game versus Trask. He had a field day, but who else? He had a field day against everybody, really. So they did their part in the playoffs. They shined. Nothing was available for Fields in the title game. It was really just boring trying to watch the Ohio State offense, because they were getting that, they're that puzzled with how good this secondary and all-around unit was playing.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to see how DeMarco Hellams and Jordan Battle. I think they're going to be a top safety duo in the conference, and DeMarco Hellams, he'll get more of a starting role. Jordan Battle, he's going to be a guy that's going to be a top draft pick. The secondary, you just can't say enough about it. And then you go down to the corners.
Josh Jobe and Malachi
Yes, Moore. Yeah, Josh Jobe, Malachi Moore. Guys, that are going to be – Jobe's going to be the guy after Surtan's gone, because they signed in the same class, really played alongside each other really throughout the course of their career at Bama. So Jobe's going to be the main guy there.
Yeah, Patrick Surtan depart, so Josh Yobe will be relied on to anchor down the number 1 CB role. But he didn't allow a single completion of 20 yards last year. He's never given up more than 55 yards in a game in his career at Bama. 11 pass breakups a season ago. So he's going to take the number 1 role. Malachi Moore, I'm not really sure what they're going to do with him. Are they going to leave him in the slot where he was the nation's best at the position a year ago? Or are they going to move him to CB number 2 or potentially number 1? How do you see Malachi Moore's role in 2021?
Well, I think Alabama just has the depth at corner to where they can really move Malachi wherever they want. And I wouldn't say that it's a concern, because, Jalen Amore Davis is a guy that's going to see the field, Daniel Wright, and then, of course, Kool-Aid McKinstry. Completely forgot to mention him. He's a guy that's going to be on the field. I could possibly see him staying at this slot spot, and maybe Kool-Aid be a potential starter. I'm not entirely sure because Bama just has so much depth that they can really rotate these guys wherever they want.
And Name, I don't want you to forget about Brian Branch. Was very good as a freshman last
Yes,
season. 7 pass
absolutely.
breakups, 2 interceptions, and I'm glad you touched on the depth. They have great depth in the secondary. Dan, you're right. Like you said, I don't know if he'll play in that corner, but he can play that safety position if Helen struggles, or if they have injuries or someone's ejected. If someone gets ejected due to the targeting or whatever, in sportsmen like this in the secondary, they are well prepared to overcome whatever challenges they face. That's why I'm really high on this unit. These guys are just the depth right now is. I'm not going to say it's the best they've ever had it, but it's really impressive what they have coming back for this year.
Yeah, I mean they're a team their depth. It's been in a lot of these positions. It's been the best it's been in a while, and that's why I think this defense is going to be. I wouldn't say light years ahead of it where it was last year, but I think we're going to see a really much more aggressive, get to the quarterback, force a lot more turnovers. Alabama defense.
Yeah, like I said, vintage Alabama defense. That's the expectation from me this upcoming season. Is this the nation's best secondary? I know they have stiff competition from in conference, in division, LSU with Eli Ricks and Derek Stingley, but these guys, I think this is probably going to be the nation's best secondary.
Yeah, I think that debate they're certainly up there in terms, and you can easily make that debate.
Moving ahead to the schedule they have, it's an interesting schedule. They open the season versus Miami. Have a trap game week 3 at Florida. And I say that's a trap game because, getting Alabama in week 3 at home in Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, that's a big game for Florida. Having them that early in the season, that is monumental because Alabama will not be playing their best football in week 3. And then they have Texas A&M and Auburn on the road. And they also host Ole Miss early in the season. So, do you think this team is going to go 12-0, 11-1? How do you see this playing out? And if they're going to lose a game, who do you see pulling the trigger and upsetting them?
So there are 4 teams that I think have the best team or best chance of beating Alabama. And I'll go with Miami, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and Auburn. Those are the teams that I think that have the best chance. Now, if you want to cut that list down, it gets smaller to A&M, I would believe. I honestly think it goes to 12-0. Bama goes 12-0. I just think that they have too much power. Even in a year where their offense, they have questions, not really questions at quarterback, but
youth, really.
Yeah, youth. They just need to get some more experience, and they're still gonna go 12-0 in the regular season.
Yeah, Bryce Young, he'll be making, I don't know, I believe it's his first road start. Yeah, will come in week 3 against Florida. So it's going to be interesting. I'm very excited to see what he does in that game. A great Florida pass rush. So you're going to learn a lot that day about Bryce Young. That's for sure.
I want to touch on why I said Ole Miss instead of LSU, because I'm sure that there will be some that are like, okay, this guy's crazy. Well, I say Ole Miss. If you watch the recent pod, I'm really high on Matt Corral. I really like his ability, and I think we could see a potential shootout. Because he's just got that ability, and if Lane Kiffin just lets him sling it and he call the right plays, then I think that we could see a shootout, kind of Chad Kelly, Alabama, Ole Miss-esque shootout.
Yeah, the second year when Chad Kelly played Alabama, I picked Ole Miss to win that game. People thought I was crazy, and I was like, well, Chad Kelly's the real deal, and I feel like I'm not going to compare to Matt Corral, but he had a field day against them last year, absolutely destroyed him. But I've never seen I believe Phil Longo's the OC. I've never seen some guy, an offense of play calling go as graceful as it was last year when they played Alabama. I've never seen it so impressive. Alabama had no answers for him. I think Dylan Moses claimed that Ole Miss was stealing signs. Regardless, very impressive what they were able to do. The only team that we saw do that to Alabama's defense all year was Ole Miss. So that's certainly a game that, Lane Kiffin has scheduled, as does Nick Saban and Pete Golding, because they definitely, they host them, so they could probably blow them out. But everyone's going to take note of that game, though, that Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, a lot of the teams that Bama has to play, a lot of their key matchups, aside from Texas A&M, are at Alabama. So they have that going for them. And aside from the Iron Bowl, it'll be at Auburn. LSU, it'll be at Tuscaloosa, and then A&M at College Station. So the schedule, I would say it kind of benefits Alabama.
Yeah, because over the last few years, we haven't seen Alabama have the greatest of schedules. Every once in a while they'll have a ranked matchup in their schedule in conference. It's not always contingent on them. Sometimes their competition isn't always the greatest. But this year, I think they have a really tough schedule. And this year, they're people will be like, "Well, Alabama didn't earn the playoffs just because of the weak schedule." They're not going to be saying that. 12-0, 10-2, 11-1, whatever Alabama, whatever record they have, they will most certainly earned it with who's on the schedule. I'm very happy to see what they do. Because sometimes Alabama's playing nobody, and whatever. And I don't think we're going to have that this year. They play a good amount of tough games that I'm happy with. So,
Yeah, the only real games that they have in question are their 3 non-conference games, or 3 of their 4 non-conference games with Mercer, Southern Miss, and New Mexico State. Those should all be wins, but I don't think that those are going to impact a 12-0 Alabama's chances. Unless they struggle with their top tier teams that they did play with. And there's a lot of circumstances regarding the college football playoff, and especially now that they have a 12 team proposal. So there's a lot of different things that could happen.
Yeah, another episode for another day. The 12 teams being proposed, but regardless, I'm sure that if anything helps Alabama. So, if you have nothing else to add, we can go ahead and wrap this up.
Yeah, I do have one more thing to add in terms of the defense and offense in terms of scoring. So Alabama defense averaged around just under 20 points of scoring. I honestly could see that team getting that down to 15, but I could also see their offense going down from the 49-48 mark and getting down to around the 40-point mark. So still in the 40-point range in terms of offense. So not a really big dip, but just about a touchdown and an extra point away from down in points.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with assuming the offense will falter just a little bit in terms of scoring because they don't have the quick hitters like they did last year where guys were running downfield wide open. I don't think that's a bad take whatsoever because you lose the speed and Waddle, the separation from Smith. They have great guys who are going to fill those roles. So Alabama fans, calm down. We understand, but I don't think they're going to be scoring at the high rate they did last year.
Yeah, it's just going to be a learning year. It's going to be a year in which these guys learn the offense because they're really young, they're youthful. But like I said, I still have this team going 12-0. I see no issues with the youth. It's just a matter of time and figuring it all out.
Yeah, that's scary to say. It's going to be a learning year, but they're also going to go 12-0. So
that's the Alabama standard, man. That's how they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the last thing I'd like to notice, Will Riker, they finally have a kicker. 14 of 14 last year, 84 of 84 in extra points. He didn't miss a single kick last year. They finally have a kicker, so that's another part. Alabama's always missed a great kicker. They've always, they've had a reliable kicker, really. They finally have one, so that's, even worse for teams. Some games might come down to his leg this year, and I have full confidence in him hitting whatever's thrown at him, so.
Yeah, and another thing is this team, I don't know if a lot of people realize it, but Devontae Smith never left. Devontae Smith is a corner that they signed in 21. You never heard about that, did you?
No, I did. Actually, I forgot about that.
Yeah, that corner. So just a guy that we can add onto the secondary, Devontae Smith. We'll see. I wonder if he chooses number 6. That'll be kind of funny to see that number 6 running around in the secondary, D. Smith.
Yeah, some irony for sure. That's pretty cool, and it's something I'm sure some people will talk about. I'm not sure if he's going to be a good player for them in the back end, but the name, no lineage involved, but the name, he's going to be a good player. So
it's just funny, exact spelling and everything. It's just really funny. The year he leaves, they get another guy with the same name.
Yeah, that's fascinating for sure. If you don't have anything else to add, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. We're both keen with Alabama going 12-0. We'll have an SEC championship prediction, and we'll see. You'll see if we have them winning the SEC title outright in a few episodes where we do our SEC predictions.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll just leave it at that 12-0 in the regular season, and Alabama will continue its winning ways, and I think they'll get better immensely on defense. So
yeah.
All right, guys. Appreciate you listening in, Rowdy. Appreciate having you on. And everybody, check out our recent episodes, top 10 quarterbacks, ACC predictions. We also broke down the 2021 Texas Longhorns, so check them all out.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. Catch you later.